By 1967, the village of Nawatarn in eastern India had earned a grim reputation. It was isolated, impoverished, and plagued by violent crime. Locals knew the rule. Once the sun went down, you didn't walk outside alone. But Father James Kottayil didn't live by that fear. So when two well-dressed strangers knocked on his rectory door at 9 o'clock at night, he didn't turn them away. True to his nature, he welcomed them inside, offering them food, water, and a place to rest. About an hour later, the men returned to his door. As soon as he opened it, they lunged. They stabbed him repeatedly, inflicting 13 deep wounds to his stomach. The attackers knew exactly what they were doing, using a specific, brutal technique designed to keep the blood inside the body to make medical intervention almost impossible. In the immediate aftermath, local power brokers and the authorities quickly settled on a convenience story. They pushed the narrative that this was a tragic, random robbery that escalated into murder, a common hazard in a dangerous neighborhood. There was a major flaw in that official story. Christina Mins, the wife of the parish cook and the first person to reach the horrific scene, noted a critical detail. Absolutely nothing was taken from the room. This was a coordinated professional hit. And to understand why a quiet rural priest was targeted for assassination, we have to look at what he was building and who it threatened. James Kottayil came from a well-established Catholic family in Kerala, in southern India. He was an incredibly sharp, observant Jesuit priest who specifically chose to dedicate his life to the Adivasis, the indigenous tribal people of the Chotanagpur region. When he arrived, he found a community trapped in absolute destitution. They were victims of systematic land grabbing and a practice called Beth Bagari, a system of forced labor where villagers were compelled to work without pay, effectively reducing them to slaves on land their families once owned. The power in the region was entirely controlled by outside landlords and moneylenders known as zamindars. They kept the Adivasi people subjugated by weaponizing debt. When massive droughts ravaged the region between 1965 and 1967, crop failures forced starving farmers straight into the hands of these moneylenders, locking them into high-interest loans they could never repay. Kottayil studied this power dynamic closely and developed a specific counter-strategy. He called it gradual evolution rather than sudden revolution. Instead of organizing violent uprisings, he designed a methodical, step-by-step blueprint to systematically dismantle the landlord's economic stranglehold. He saw that offering spiritual comfort to a starving population solved nothing on its own. To truly serve his parish, he had to engineer their complete economic liberation from the zamindar's debt traps. His first major move was highly tactical. He temporarily left the rural mission and traveled to Mumbai, a bustling financial hub, to get professional, rigorous training in the mechanics of rural cooperative credit societies. This diagram illustrates how his plan worked in Nawatarn. Instead of borrowing from the zamindars at extortionate interest rates, the villagers pooled their own resources into a shared cooperative. This provided fair, low-interest credit to the community, instantly breaking the landlord's monopoly on local capital. He then targeted their food supply. He analyzed their traditional farming methods and realized they were producing low yields. To fix this, he introduced the highly efficient Japanese method of flooded paddy cultivation, along with hardy, reliable crops like tapioca, which drastically increased the village's food security. He even reorganized their social schedules. Realizing that attending midday Sunday church services disrupted the farmers' work, he moved mass to sunrise. This allowed the Adivasi farmers to maximize their daylight hours in the fields and remain competitive. To ensure this new system survived, he had to build local leaders. He launched weekly academies in the parish schools, specifically training previously marginalized tribal youth in public speaking, so they could advocate for themselves and manage their own affairs. Together, these initiatives acted like a hammer against the existing power structure. The Adivasis were rapidly gaining financial independence and self-reliance. As a direct result, the wealthy zamindars were hemorrhaging both their wealth and their supply of free labor. The zamindars ordered the hit because Kottayil's parallel economy was actively dismantling their control over the local workforce. Which brings us back to the night of July 13th. Bleeding heavily, Kottayil was rushed in the dark to Holy Family Hospital. Word reached the Archbishop's house early the next morning, triggering a desperate call for blood donors. Despite the immediate medical response, his condition steadily deteriorated. He survived in agonizing pain for 70 hours. During that time, he remained completely conscious, while his terrified and angry community gathered, demanding justice and preparing for retaliation against the landlords. As investigators and fellow Jesuits pressed for names, it became clear that Kottayil knew exactly who was responsible, yet he refused to identify them. His reasoning was rooted entirely in his Jesuit training. He knew that naming his killers would trigger a brutal, endless cycle of violent tribal vengeance. Instead, he made a calculated, spiritual choice, telling his superiors, "They were my brothers. I have forgiven them fully." Father Kottayil died on the evening of July 16, 1967. The zamindars who ordered the hit likely assumed they had won, that without its architect, the Adivasi liberation movement would fracture and collapse. The data shows the exact opposite happened. His death catalyzed the community. Over the following decades, the local parish in Nawatarn exploded from 1,000 members to over 4,000. They built high schools, a junior college, and produced a massive wave of new local leaders. By refusing to seek revenge, Kottayil weaponized his own martyrdom. While his assassins intended to eliminate a threat, they instead cemented a legacy. His methodical blueprint for economic freedom and his ultimate sacrifice provided a lasting framework for tribal empowerment that continues to be recognized a century later.